Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I want to look at the weekend of February the 3rd and 4th, 2024. Now, as far as my topic is concerned, I want to look at a couple of charts. I want to look at the chart of Joshua Schulte. Now, Joshua Schulte was a computer programmer working for the CIA who leaked a load of information to Wikileaks, I believe. He was also convicted of, how shall I put it, possessing inappropriate photographs regarding children. If you want to look at the details, you can look it up. And he has just been sentenced to 40 years in prison. I don't have his time of birth. I do have a date of birth, so I did want to look at his horoscope. I also wanted to look at the horoscopes, fairly briefly, of the Biden brothers, because this weekend Beau and Hunter Biden would or do have their birthdays. So Beau Biden was born on February the 3rd, 1969. Hunter Biden was born on February the 4th, 1970. So I do quickly, want to look at their charts. I mean, it is interesting that, their birthdays are so close, and that means, of course, that they have the sun in Aquarius. Their suns would be in Aquarius, and the suns would be very close together. So really, that's three charts I want to look at. I might quickly look at Joe Biden's chart as well, but not from a perspective, really, of politics. So that's my theme. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for this weekend, the weekend of February the 3rd and the 4th, 2024. So on the picture on the left, that is Hunter Biden. On the right, that is Beau Biden. So here is a chart. Here's a chart of the weekend. So what is the main theme this weekend? Well, the moon does go into Sagittarius. It goes into Sagittarius at London time. It goes into Sagittarius at 6:28 on Sunday morning. So 6:28 Sunday morning is sort of 7:28. But in 6:28 London time is going to be 7:28 Paris or Berlin time. On Sunday morning. That's going to be 1:28 a.m. Sunday morning New York time. It's actually going to be very late on Saturday, Los Angeles time. Would be, I think, 10:28 p.m. As far if you're in Australia, New Zealand, well, the sun doesn't go into Sagittarius until Sunday evening. But for most of us, we can say that really Saturday is a moon in Scorpio. Did I say the sun? I meant to say the moon. Moon moves from Scorpio to Sagittarius, and so that takes place on Sunday morning. So London time. So for most of us, Saturday will have be a moon in Scorpio day, and a Sunday will be a moon in Sagittarius day. So that's possibly the big dividing going on over the weekend. As far as other things are concerned, on Saturday, as the moon moves out of Scorpio, it does make an opposition of Uranus. So probably that moon opposition Uranus it's also going to be making a sextile to Mars. So there may be a bit of excitement on Saturday, a bit of instability, moon opposition Uranus. Things getting a bit unstable maybe, but also exciting. So there could be some interesting things going on there. But don't make assumptions. Don't make fixed plans on Saturday because things might go awry. Things might happen which you simply weren't expecting. So moving to Sunday, yes, the moon is in Sagittarius, and on the surface that might sound good because moon in Sagittarius is a sort of expansive sign, exciting, lots of things going on, things we want to do. But the moment the moon moves into the Sagittarius, it starts making a square to Saturn, and that does mean perhaps that there are certainly things we do want to do, but the question is, are we actually going to be able to do them? We might find that there are plenty of roadblocks, or one particular person tries to frustrate our progress. So do bear that in mind. I think that on Sunday we may need a certain amount of patience. So you've got to bear with the situation. So that's the weekend. I actually don't think that it's particularly exciting. I suppose I have to point out that there's the sun at 14 Aquarius, is actually on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. And I think the sun on the Mars-Saturn midpoint could cast a bit of a shadow over the weekend. Reason being, the Mars-Saturn midpoint can be about delay, frustration, things just not working out, things not happening. And, in certain situations, it may be about a concern about death. I'm not saying anyone's going to die, at least in a personal sense, but, in terms of, what's going on in the world, there may be a certain feeling of gloom caused by that sun on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. That might also be reflected by the attitude of certain people, negativity perhaps. So do bear that in mind. So if you find yourself thinking about death and destruction, don't panic. It's just something going on in the sky, the sun conjuncting the Mars-Saturn midpoint. It will pass. Don't worry. But yeah, overall, I'm not really saying that it's going to be a particularly busy weekend for most of us. I can't see any major aspects going on. Though, of course, I should point out that Mercury is now moving through the last degree of Capricorn, last couple of degrees of Capricorn, because on Monday morning, depending on where you are, Mercury moves into Aquarius. In fact, I think if you're in Los Angeles, very late on Sunday, Mercury will be moving into Aquarius. So I'm not saying, though, that Mercury moving from Capricorn into Aquarius is a big deal. It's moving from two signs both ruled by Saturn. I will be putting out a video for the week ahead rather than just the day ahead very soon, and in that video I will be discussing in more detail what it means for Mercury to move from Capricorn to Aquarius. So after having looked at the general picture for the week, I'm going to do my star sign, not for the week, for the weekend. Having looked at the general picture for the weekend, I want to do my star sign forecasts for the weekend. I'm going to try and keep it fairly brief because actually I don't think for most of us there is a great deal going on. Aries. Saturday is a day when you're still feeling somewhat cautious. You're not fully engaged with the world, and you kind of want to hold back. I think that's the right approach. But you don't have to go over the top. I think, Aries, you by and large do understand what's going on around you. You understand how people are feeling. And you're unlikely to do the wrong thing. I think that you'll know how to behave. Now, that doesn't mean on Saturday that you have to but you have to be too cautious, because the moon, while moving through Scorpio, makes a sextile aspect to Mars. Mars is your ruler, so that aspect between Moon and Mars gives you a chance to do something really useful. You might not be in the mood for doing anything useful, but I think you certainly can do something useful, particularly in terms of career and business and the whole way you try to move ahead. I think that's certainly something you can do. Aries, consider the possibilities. There are some possibilities. Even though it's a Saturday, it may feel that no one's interested, no one wants to do anything. If you look hard enough, Aries, I think you can find some useful things to do. So moving into Sunday, and I think you start to become aware of new possibilities, Aries. You're better able to deal with the world around you. You're better able to look at the world and just see possibilities. And in seeing these possibilities, you perhaps have to move slightly beyond your comfort zone. You have to perhaps experiment with things that you haven't done before. Just give that consider that. Though in the first instance, as you attempt to expand your horizons, you may come across a bit of a roadblock. At first, you might feel, no, you can't do it. You've got these big ideas, but on Sunday you may feel that you're somewhat blocked. But this roadblock, whatever it is quite temporary and is actually quite easy to deal with. I suppose if you've got a roadblock, it's a problem if you're in a car, but if you're on foot, you just walk around it. Isn't that the case? So perhaps you need to be a bit nimble when you see a block in front of you, and that should allow you to move forward with whatever plans you've got on Sunday. At the same time, in terms of relationships, I don't know. Partners, people close to you, they're in a bit of a strange mood. They kind of want to communicate. They're quite happy to communicate. But at the same time, they have some rather odd ideas and perhaps some odd fears. They may be thinking about things which you might regard as not being entirely healthy. I mean, I suppose you're an Aries. You like things to be simple. You're impulsive. And so when talking to people close to you, at first it might seem okay, but then, you really try to work out what they're thinking about. And I don't know, they do have some strange ideas and some strange fears. So you can try to reassure them, or perhaps you should just let them be. I think their concerns are quite temporary, and soon enough they'll return to their normal, happy selves. Taurus. On Saturday, the emphasis seems to still be on relationships. This is because the moon is moving through Scorpio. I talk about relationships in the most general sense. sort of the word relationship, which I kind of feel I overuse in these star sign forecasts, is, it's code for all of those contacts outside yourself, everything that is not you. And that's a big part of what is going on today. You do understand that there are things going on outside your immediate sphere that do have an influence on you. But it's a situation that I think today, that I think on Saturday, that you're not entirely satisfied with, and you might kind of rebel. After all, on Saturday there is an opposition aspect between the Moon and Uranus. So Moon and Uranus opposition across the main axis of your chart, is perhaps going to encourage you to do some crazy stuff, do things to assert your independence. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. It's up to you. You have to decide. But if there are relationships holding you back, things happening outside your immediate sphere holding you back, you're in the mood for rebellion. And I think you can take action to free yourself. In the process, okay, you might make a few enemies, but I think you'll make some friends. After all, the Moon is sextile Mars, and in the Taurus chart, Mars has a special relationship with the other. So by acting in a slightly hasty way, you may actually find that you are able to get in touch with one particular person. Maybe a new friendship, new relationship, or maybe, an existing relationship can be invigorated. So that, I think, is perhaps something to look forward to. So as you move into Sunday, things do change. I think many Taurians are going to start to take life a little more seriously. You will be aware of some of the things that might be holding you back. I think, what's holding you back? In fact, you may take the view that there are some people who you have had a lot to do with are just not really useful anymore. That they're restricting your freedom of action, or so it feels, or maybe they're cramping your style, or just basically on an emotional level you realize you just plain don't like them. That's okay. If that's the way you feel, you don't have to apologize about it. But on Sunday, it also might be a good idea to start to sort of focus on money a bit. Not just ordinary money, but serious details of your financial situation. It may just be 10 minutes, just looking at it, thinking about it, because you might reach some important conclusions. And also on Sunday, it might be a good idea to start to think about how you are going to put theory into practice. I think over the last couple of weeks, Taurians have had some ideas, perhaps relating to business or career or something practical like that. You've had some ideas and you've been thinking about it. But the time for thinking may actually be coming to an end because, on Monday, okay, very late on Sunday if you're on the west coast of the US, Mercury moves into Aquarius, and in terms of the Taurian chart, that does indicate a time when ideas need to be put into action. So that is a note for the immediate future. Gemini, you're feeling somewhat uncertain, because I think you're aware that a change is afoot. I mean, reason being is that Mercury is your ruling planet, and it's moving through the last degrees of Capricorn, and it's preparing for its movement into Aquarius. Now, that movement doesn't actually happen until Monday, and well, unless you're on the Pacific coast of the US, in which case it might happen. I think it happens very late on very late on Sunday. But yeah, you're feeling a bit uncertain because you are in the process of change, and so you're probably not ready to make big commitments. You're probably not ready for sort of large scale action. Yeah, because you're unsure of yourself, and you know, I think it's very reasonable to take that view. I think you know, your feelings and your sensitivities are important, but of course you can't brood forever, and at some stage you're going to have to gain some higher ground. Okay, not this weekend, but beginning of next week, you will need some higher ground. By higher ground, I mean the higher ground on which you can see things, because in a certain way, Gemini, you've been putting yourself into a situation where you haven't been able to see the big picture, perhaps because you've been too focused on yourself. But you know, all that is changing. Now, as far as the specifics of a weekend are concerned, I think that on Saturday you may feel that it's a time to finish a few things off, or perhaps of a fairly routine nature. There may be things that are disorganized and need to be put back in the right place. If that needs to be done, you can't, you know, go do something else, because you're not going to feel comfortable about it until you've sorted out whatever you need to sort out. Then the moon changes sign. It changes sign from Scorpio to Sagittarius, and this I think this could be positive. I mean, in the Gemini chart, you know, Sagittarius is very much connected with other people, and it may be that you can be more forthcoming in terms of dealing with people. You'll find it, you know, easier to communicate, easier to express yourself. So that's certainly a good thing. But you might find that there is something in the way, something preventing you from really getting close to people. It may be just things you have to do. You know, you may have thought everything's sorted out on Saturday, but still on Sunday there are things to do. You may feel that you have to start preparing for the week ahead, and I don't think you need to go get obsessed about it, but there may be at least just one thing that needs to be sorted out on Sunday before you can give other people, you know, the fullness of your time. So that's something you need to negotiate. So in terms of relationships, you know, I think, you know, the picture is fairly clear. You know, Saturday's not really a day for relationships, but Sunday, yeah, relationships are going to be important because Moon is going to be in Sagittarius, your opposite sign. And you just have to work out how much time you're going to give people. You have to give people some of your time. Okay, not all of your time, but some of your time. You know, at first you might not be willing to do that. But maybe it's just a question of getting used to the fact that the Moon is in Sagittarius. Plus, you've got the added issue that Mercury is right, and you know, on Sunday is in the last degree of Capricorn. So you're not going to want to really reveal too much about yourself. So yeah, you'll have to work it out. Yes, relationships are important, but I think. To begin on Sunday, but yeah, to begin with, you're not going to be fully in the spirit for it. So perhaps you need to tread carefully and not and not overcommit to anyone on Sunday, because I don't think you're going to be able to fulfill those commitments, not least because I don't think you'll be in the mood. Cancer. So Cancer, on Saturday, you may be quite excitable. That's because the moon, your ruler, is moving through late Scorpio. In the Cancerian chart, Scorpio is a sign that's very much connected with creativity, doing special things that are unique to you. That's a big part of the Scorpio experience, if you are a Cancerian. And I think you are not going to take kindly on Saturday to anyone getting in your way. I mean, after all, the moon is making an opposition aspect to Uranus. The moon is in Scorpio, Uranus is in Taurus, so you're going to be very independent-minded, and you won't take kindly to other people getting in your way, even if you're on really good terms with them. But it probably works both ways. You're actually going to find that there are certain people who really want your attention, and they may do weird stuff, crazy stuff in order to get your attention, which you might find annoying. And then, because you and someone else both want to express your individuality, there may be a bit of a conflict there. So you'll have to sort of work out how best to deal with it. Yet I think that you and someone else can form actually quite a useful relationship. You might not agree with this person on everything, but if you can work through your incompatibilities, then on Saturday I think there's scope for quite a sort of a dynamic relationship to start to form. Now, as you move into Sunday, I do think that things will, to an extent, slow down. I think you'll start to see that the world around you is not perfect, and there are going to be parts of that world which you have control over, and there are going to be other parts which you don't have control over. And the parts of the world that you do have control over, you can kind of reconfigure, you can reorganize, and that's something you might want to do. Now, in the process on Sunday, you and someone else might have actually some kind of disagreement. You're just not going in the same direction. That is because there is a stressful aspect between the moon and Saturn. It's not an unusual aspect. I mean, moon Saturn, there's a moon Saturn square on Sunday, and that happens twice a month. It's not in a sense a big deal, but there may be a fleeting moment on Sunday where just you and other people, you have different ways of looking at the world, and it's not something that you can negotiate with or compromise with. It's just accepting the situation and allowing things to change, because you can have different views of the world one day and have the same view of it, have a very complementary and views of the world that are on the same wavelength the next day. Things do change, particularly when the moon is involved. So probably on Sunday, relationships should be treated with a bit of caution, and you can't expect to get too close to any one person, because there may be some fleeting incompatibility. But besides, on Sunday, I think your main priority is to reconfigure the world around you, which you have power over. Leo. So Leo, Saturday and Sunday in many respects are different. On On Saturday, probably you're going to want to, spend time in your own space. Uh, you're you're not going to, you're not going to want to move too far from your home and the places where you feel familiar, and that's okay. Nonetheless, there are going to be pressures to move beyond this space. Things might happen. People might talk to you and say, "Look, you've got to do this." If you're working, there might be pressure to do something on Saturday. Not something you want to do, but you may feel there's an obligation to do it. And you have to consider look at the situation. Is this a kind of pressure that you need to give into? So that is Saturday. I think you can do some useful stuff on Saturday, if you put your mind to it. You actually on Saturday do have quite a lot of energy, but it's energy you want to use on your terms. You want to throw your energy into your activities, not other people's activities. You don't have to move. So you don't have to move away from your own home or your own property, your own particular space. You don't have to do that. You don't have to move away from it to make effective use of your energy. Now, moving on to Sunday, and there is a change. The moon moves out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, and I think for many Leos this is a time of sort of optimism. You can find that finally you can start doing the stuff that you want to do without having to worry too much about people interfering. Now, you may not fully trust yourself to do what you want to do. I know you've got things you want to do, but you kind of might hold back for some sort of psychological reason. Is it really true? Can you really do what you want to do? Are you really free? Yes, you are. You don't have to worry about it. But I think worry about it you might do. This is because the sun is your ruling planet. Okay, the sun is in Aquarius, but it is on conjunct the Mars-Saturn midpoint. And so, the Mars-Saturn midpoint, the Mars-Saturn conjunction, can be about worry. It can be about delays. It can be about fear. So that reinforces the point. There are things you're concerned about. You may be looking at the world and saying, no, you can't do this because the world is so dangerous. But honestly, I think you're exaggerating. Sure, don't do dangerous stuff over the weekend, but your freedom is what matters, especially on Sunday. So if there's something you want to do, then in most cases you should go and do it. And it may be that there are people who are supportive of what you want to do. And indeed, it's when you are free and when you are creative, it's when you are at your most pleasant. So if you want to attract new people into your life, or if you want to get on better with existing people, it's so important that you're enjoying yourself. Because if you're not enjoying yourself, then maybe no one else is going to be enjoying yourself. No one else is going to be enjoying themselves, and you won't be such a fun person to have around. So don't hold back. Virgo. So Virgo, Mercury is your ruler. Mercury is in the process of changing signs. It's in the last degree or two of Capricorn, getting ready to move into Aquarius. So when you look at all your, the activities that you're engaged with over the weekend, you may have a feeling that some of them are coming to an end. Or maybe you have a feeling that the easy part is coming to an end. You're engaged in something. To begin with, it was straightforward, it was easy, and now it's just becoming a little difficult. And you're having to think more about it. And so, that might make it a little difficult to really sort of enjoy yourself over the weekend. And when you try to communicate with the world around you, it may seem a little bit of an effort. It feels like you have to make a special effort to attract people's attention. You almost have to say stuff and do stuff which is a little over the top in order to make an impression. Maybe people just don't notice ordinary, straightforward communications, just using ordinary communication, ordinary, straightforward words. That doesn't seem to have an impact. It's almost as if people aren't listening to you. And it feels that in order to really make an impression, you have to be larger than life. And that's not something that Virgos are particularly comfortable with. Still, it's something you might have to do. So be ready for that. And as you move into Sunday, Virgo, I think that you're going to be feeling that you don't really want to engage. Yes, there are people to engage with on Sunday, but do you actually want to engage with them? Probably not. And it may actually be the case that there are certain people who, if you get too close to them on Sunday, they could just restrict your freedom. They might want to, tell you to do something, be something, and it just might not be something you want to do. So maybe on Sunday you shouldn't make too much of an effort to signal your presence, because if you start signaling your presence, you might find that the people who notice that you are present, that notice that you are around, they might try to make your life difficult. I mean, not deliberately, but they might just have views about how you should be behaving, and that's probably not something you want to get involved with. So, not surprisingly, I would suggest that on Sunday, relationships, in most cases, should probably be avoided. I just don't think that they will give you everything you need. Yet, having said all that, there could be over the weekend a sudden meeting, a meeting that just comes from nowhere, that is kind of disconnected with everything else going on around you. And this sudden meeting, a sudden contact with one person, probably not someone you see all the time, just someone who's just suddenly right there. And this meeting, I think, could be very fortunate. It's exciting, and it certainly provides a different focus, a focus which you probably need. So, Virgo, do consider that possibility, and don't be closed-minded if this sudden encounter does indeed happen. Libra. Well, on Saturday, I think you probably feel that there are certain details to deal with, and I think on Saturday also you're going to be fairly concerned about money. I think you're not going to want to spend more money than you have to, so you need to honour that. I know that in society, you don't want to give, you don't want to give the impression that you're looking after, that you're concerned about money. Particularly if you're a Libra. Librans like to just, they like to sort of fit in with the world around them, with the society around them, and they don't want to sort of rock the boat by sort of holding back because they don't, they really are uncomfortable about spending money on something. But don't be a Libra. If you don't want to spend money, don't spend money. That's the way it is. You know your financial situation better than anyone else. I hope. So don't be tempted. Still, I think on Saturday there could be an unexpected demand on you in a financial sense, and because it's unexpected, there's a temptation to just give into it. It's sometimes with money, if we think about it, we can hold on. We can hold on to the purse strings, but if it's very sudden, very immediate, suddenly someone wants money out of nowhere, then the temptation is to give in because it's such a surprise. But so you have to be ready for that. Don't just spend money because there's an immediate demand to spend money on Saturday. So as far as Sunday is concerned, I think in many respects it's an easier day in the sense that it's going to be easier for you to get your message across. Perhaps you have a message that you've been keeping back. You felt it hasn't been appropriate to give out to deliver the message, but now I think, Libra, you really can start to you can deliver it. And I think you're helped by the fact that over the weekend, your communication skills are actually going to be quite good, but especially on Sunday. And you can, if you have to meet new people, I think you'll know how to communicate. You'll know what to say, and that won't be a problem. Of course, people come in all shapes and sizes. So if you're deciding to have quite a sociable weekend, particularly on Sunday, you might come across people who are a bit strange, people who have maybe a shockingly negative view of the world, or who have, in extreme situations, sort of criminal connections, and that's not something you want to get involved in, obviously. So perhaps that's talking about people with shady pasts, maybe shady presents as well. So look out for that. You can't be friends with everyone, and there are some people you might come across over the weekend, again, especially on Sunday, who perhaps should be avoided. Scorpio. Well, as you know, Scorpio, the moon is moving through your star sign. It has been moving through your star sign for the last couple of days. On Saturday, the moon continues moving through your star sign. So on Saturday, overall, you're feeling that you're in the right place, that you're getting everything right. And you're helped by the fact that the moon in Scorpio, is making a sextile to Mars, and Mars is your ruling planet. So you're able to, I think, engage with the world pretty effectively. I think you're able to communicate with the world very effectively. But don't be surprised on Saturday if there are strange events and unexpected events regarding the world out there, perhaps relating to maybe a particular relationship. Other people are not entirely predictable. They might do something you weren't planning on, or there just might be an event which you weren't planning on. And one of the problems with Scorpios is that Scorpios can be a little bit they can be inflexible, because Scorpio is a fixed sign. And so when something happens, you may not be able to respond immediately. You may just freeze and kind of feel offended because someone has disrupted your way of being. So Scorpio, if possible, you got to try and have a little bit of flexibility on Saturday. So if something does happen, you're ready to make make a change. Now, on Sunday, the moon moves out of Scorpio into Sagittarius. It kind of depends where you are. Okay, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, the change won't happen until Sunday evening. If you're in the Americas or Western Europe, it will be done by Sunday morning. But so the moon is moving from Scorpio to Sagittarius, and I think, in one sense, this is a time when you perhaps you don't feel quite so sure of yourself, and also you're starting to ask yourself, what do you need to do to make yourself sure of yourself? And I think there may be a big focus on your resources. You may be sort of concerned, for example, that you don't have enough resources. That might relate to money, and whatever's going on, your finances are going to start to become more important to you. And with the moon in Sagittarius, you might feel you have to do something in sooner or later to put your finances on the right footing. And you're a Scorpio. I think you know what needs to be done. I don't think you have to do anything dramatic on Sunday, but you can perhaps start to plan on doing something at the beginning of a week, perhaps on Monday. I should also say, Scorpio, that I know that you have a reputation perhaps for being quite sort of introspective, and you like to do things your way, but there is a lightness over the weekend to Scorpios. When socializing, you're able to sort of move from one person to another, with a certain amount of talent. One doesn't want to go over the top on saying that Scorpio is a fixed, inflexible sign. You do, because I think it's because you're quite emotional, and you have emotional sensitivity. That does give you a little bit of flexibility because you understand shifting emotions, and helped by this understanding, I think that you can have a fairly productive social life, or at least a productive time in terms of networking and interacting with different people. Of course, you don't have to meet them face to face. It can be on the phone, on the internet, whatever. But yeah, from a networking point of view, I think it might actually be quite a successful weekend. Sagittarius. Well, on Saturday, you feel that you're preparing for something. You feel you're not really ready. That you still need time to work things out. And that is absolutely reasonable, because you understand your own timing, and so on Saturday, I think you can start to prepare yourself, to organize yourself. There's nothing, I don't think, Sagittarius, that you have to do. But as you move into Sunday, the moon moves into your star sign. I think this is kind of a great relief for you. There have been no planets in fire signs the last few days, and so suddenly you've got moon moves into Sagittarius. Big relief. Finally, something is happening. Finally, you can see, you can start to see some action, and of course, the action begins with you. Now, in the first instance, when the moon goes into Sagittarius, it actually makes a square to Saturn, and from a Sagittarian perspective, you might feel that something is just restricting you. You're ready, but no one else is ready. In fact, worse, you're ready, and other people, the world around you, is seeming to want to hold you back. But really, this is just a sign that something needs to be resolved. So on Sunday, you're ready to go, but there's something that needs to be resolved, maybe negotiated with. Maybe it's something to do with your family. One of your family members is unhappy about something. They need your attention. You need to talk to them. Once you've talked to them, once you've got the problem out of the way, then you will have the freedom that you crave. So that's certainly good. Now, as far as relationships are concerned, there may be some things going on. It seems that there are one or two people out there who really want to get close to you, and you might have actually underestimated perhaps how much someone feels about you. Someone really likes you, and you haven't perhaps understood that. And if you gave them a chance, you might start to understand how much they care about you and how much they want to be close to you. So do give people a chance if appropriate. I mean, people come into people have different situations. I know like with relationships, it's always something I have to talk about, but I do understand that for many people listening to this, relationships are irrelevant. But I suppose when you're doing this kind of astrology, when you're going through the 12 signs, you've always got to say something about relationships. I think that's a kind of that's a kind of an obligation on an astrologer doing readings for the 12 signs. So if appropriate, Sagittarius, I think there is a possibility there. Someone does seem to be keener on you than perhaps you realize. Capricorn. I think Capricorn, you may feel that something is coming to an end. You've done your best to interact with the world. Your results haven't been perfect, but as far as you're concerned, it's good enough. But it all can be a bit exhausting. Particularly on Saturday. On Saturday, the moon. There's opposition Uranus, the moon is in Scorpio, opposition Uranus in Taurus. Moon in the Capricorn chart has a special connection with the other person because, Cancer's your opposite sign, moon rules Cancer. So it's just getting a bit difficult, it's just getting a bit too much, and perhaps you feel you need a break. And I think as you move into Sunday, I think you are going to appreciate your own time. Now, that doesn't mean to say on Sunday you're going to be alone. I think there's someone who is kind of following you. I don't mean following as in stalking. I mean just following you. Someone is there, someone you need to interact with, and you have to be careful. Yes, you might feel the need for bit of space, but that doesn't mean to say you have to be rude. You have to, explain what you want and what you don't want in a way that is polite. So yeah, by Sunday, I think you will start to appreciate your own space. And really, Capricorn, that is probably pretty much it. Just so Sunday, you are going to want to sort of look at the world from a distance. You'd like to be alone. I don't think you will be alone. I think there will be a couple of people around you who, they might be bothersome. But that, as I said, that doesn't mean you have to be rude. You have to sort of negotiate the situation and make sure that you have enough space so as to sort of maintain your peace of mind. Aquarius, you're in a situation where you do feel that you need to be seen, and that you do need to be seen and heard. I don't think this weekend you can really sort of withdraw yourself from society. I mean, I don't think you want to withdraw yourself from society, but in your attempts to make yourself seen and heard, especially on Saturday, you might find that there is a bit of disruption. Not everyone seems to appreciate what you're doing, and you might have to deal with things that you don't really want to deal with. You thought you'd left it behind, but no, you've got to deal with it. Maybe stuff to do with your home and your family does need attention. Maybe a family member is playing up, just causing trouble, just making a noise, and you've just got to address it. Or just maybe something in the home, some small thing needs to be fixed or isn't working properly, and you're just going to have to sort it out, and that shouldn't be a problem. Now, the moon is changing sign this weekend. Of course, the moon usually changes sign over the weekend because the moon is a fast mover. But by Sunday, the moon has moved out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius. Now, traditionally, when you do these kind of things, these sun sign readings, Sagittarius in the Aquarian chart does have a special connection with friends, and I think that might be the case. Sunday, your social life might appear to improve. At least there are opportunities for it to improve, but you have to ask yourself whether you're in the mood. Sunday does see a square aspect between the moon in Sagittarius and Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is your ruling planet, Aquarius. It's not Uranus. I mean, Uranus is a modernism. So Saturn is your ruling planet, and it's square the moon. And I think you may be creating all sorts of obstacles and barriers in terms of how you relate to other people. You're basically saying, don't come too close. That's the message you're giving. I think you need to be aware of that message consciously, not unconsciously. Because if you're unconsciously giving a message, don't come too close, then that could cause offense and misunderstandings. If you are consciously giving the message, don't come too close, then that's fine, because you can be very clear about your boundaries. So Aquarius, that's certainly something to consider. I should also point out, Aquarius, that Mercury is moving through the last degree or two of Capricorn, and it's getting ready to move into your star sign. In fact, if you're on the west coast of the US, that Mercury actually moves into Aquarius. It moves into Aquarius late on Sunday. I might be wrong on that. I think it does, late on Sunday. So if you're in Los Angeles late on Sunday, you might see a bit of a change. You might suddenly find that you're getting ideas, that your brain starts moving into top gear, that you suddenly get a sort of a new wind comes into your sails on Sunday evening. But wherever you are, Aquarius, Mercury is about to move into your star sign, and I mean I will be talking about what that means in a video I'm going to put out in the next day when I talk about what's happening over the coming week. Also, I'll be talking about it when I do my forecast for Monday. But yeah, Mercury in Aquarius is a very interesting and positive thing about to happen, not least because Mercury makes a conjunction to Pluto. In fact, that Mercury conjunct Pluto, which is in your star sign, you may be actually starting to feel it. Especially as you move into Sunday, you might feel that something's in the air, something interesting is in the air. Your curiosity is piqued. So yeah, I'll be talking about that in more detail at a later stage. Pisces. I think Pisces, it could actually be quite a good weekend. So on Saturday, there are things that you're finishing up with. I think you're starting to see the world in a new way. And I think you're reaching conclusions about the world. Interesting conclusions. Maybe even shocking conclusions. You're perhaps starting to see things for the way they really are. Then you move, as you move into Sunday, Moon moves into Sagittarius, where it makes a square aspect to Saturn. Now, I have been talking about this Moon square Saturn in a negative context for the other signs, not for you. Reason being that Saturn is in your star sign, and so Moon moving into Sagittarius square Saturn is about you being in control. You control the agenda on Sunday. You don't have to do things other people's way. In fact, Pisces, I think in many respects, all things being equal, on Sunday, you are the strongest of the 12 signs. You understand what's going on. You won't miss anything. And you can make things happen your way. Now, in the process, other people might not like you. Not everyone, but some people might find you being a pain. But that's the way it is, isn't it? What matters is that you're in control. And yeah, on Sunday, I think you will be in control, across the board. Now, as far as relationships are concerned, I'm not convinced that this is an area that you should be spending too much time on. I think that some of the people close to you are in a process of change. They're not quite sure what they want, and I don't think they can be pushed. So I think you need to accept that. Let people work things out in their own way, and soon enough they will come to a conclusion, and then it's going to be much easier to engage with them. Okay, so that's the weekend from the perspective of the 12 signs and from astrology in general. So I now want to look at the weekend from a perspective of the I Ching. So, as always, I ask the question, what is this weekend going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this YouTube video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 62, preponderance of the small, and we've had this quite recently. This hexagram is about not overreaching ourselves. It's very important not to overreach ourselves. There is a limit to what we can do. If we fly too high, try to go too far too quickly, things could go wrong very quickly. So I think for many of us, it's going to be important to keep a fairly low profile, and not to do things that are beyond our capability. One of the things about this hexagram is about dense clouds, no rain. It means it may feel that there are opportunities to make things happen. It may feel that we can do stuff, but actually, in reality, we can't. And if we do try to do things, if we do try to fly, if we try to fly too high, there could be problems. So we need to really limit ourselves and understand that there's not a great deal that can be accomplished, particularly on Saturday. Now, there are two moving lines. The second to top line moves and the top line moves. So, in other words, the fifth and the sixth. So, fifth, there are 6 lines. The fifth line is the second to the top. The sixth line is the top. So, fifth line moving. I think we kind of get the feeling that we are capable, that we do have the capacity to make things happen. But we don't have the support. Yet we may be recognized. People may see us and say, hold on, you're the one. You're the one that can make things happen. And so we might be feeling that although it's a time when we should be perhaps doing nothing, that maybe we can do something, particularly if there's social pressure. And because, we're almost being invited to take a position of leadership or to take a position of action. This fifth line is a fortunate hexagram. And normally one would like to move forward with this good fortune and to sort of explore how we could be making the most of the situation, how we could actually be making things happen. But the sixth line also moves, the top line moves. In the I Ching, the top line can often be unfortunate, and the I Ching is quite negative about this top line. The top line is about ignoring all the warnings and just doing it anyway. Perhaps we're encouraged by other people and we feel that we can move forward, and we fly too high. The Wingkup translation of the I Ching, he uses the analogy of nets on the flight path of birds. These birds fly too high, and they fall into the nets. They get captured and destroyed. And so we have to be very careful here. There is a danger here that we fly too high, and symbolically we get destroyed. I mean, obviously not literally destroyed, but we could really hurt ourselves by flying too high. So I think we have to be very disciplined here. Preponderance of the small means we have to hold back, regardless of the temptations, regardless of the flattery. People might say, "Oh yeah, you can do it. You can do it." No, you can't do it. In the end, if you take on too much, it's just not going to work. Now we've got two moving lines, so we get a transition, and so we transition to hexagram 33, which we've had very recently. I think we had it yesterday. I think retreat. That kind of fits, doesn't it? So as you move into Sundays, you understand the situation. It's time to pull back. That is the right thing to do. It's just too much. If you keep going, it's just not going to work out. And it is also, in terms of retreat, the advantage about retreating is that we can build up our resources. Because, there are things that need to be done. We're not strong enough. by retreating, we build our resources, and that's perhaps what we should be doing. So there's no disgrace in retreating. It's not about cowardice. It's the sensible, mature thing to do. So if you're in a situation on Sunday that just isn't working out, or you're with people and it's not working out, and you're not getting the right feedback, and it's just you just have bad feelings about it, just retreat. It's the best thing to do. It's a mature thing to do, and by retreating, you will actually be making yourself stronger and more secure. So now I'm going to turn back to the astrology. I first of all want to look at the chart of this man, Joshua Schulte. Now, I don't have a time of birth for him. I don't actually have a place of birth for him, but his chart had a couple of interesting features that I wanted to talk about. So he was born on September the 25th, 1988. I haven't spent a great deal of time looking at what was going on in his for him, but I think it's I don't know what time he's born, so I've gone for noon. I don't even know where he was born. The Wikipedia page didn't actually specify, but it said he spent time in Lubbock, Texas, and so I've just gone for Lubbock, Texas. Now, because I have a chart that is it's a noon chart, and I don't have a time of birth, it doesn't really matter whether I go for Lubbock, Texas, or Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon. It's not going to make a big deal of difference to the chart if I don't have a precise time. So, as I understand it, he was a bright kid, but difficult. I think there was sort of behavior issues at school, certain incidents at school. I'm not going to go into them. You can look it up. At his, and he was a bit of a computer genius. I think he got a job with the CIA, but he was difficult and touchy, and there's articles about him. The Wikipedia was talking about how arguments about his desk, and he was having rubber band fights with people when he was in the CIA, and was I think he had various nicknames. I think one of his nicknames was a nuclear option, but he got annoyed. The story goes, of course, we don't know for sure whether that story is true. The story goes that he was annoyed with the way things were happening at work, and as a result, he leaked a huge amount of classified information to Wikileaks regarding what the CIA was planning on doing. I think like monitoring people through their televisions and through devices like that. So this was considered to be, a really major security leak. It seems that as far as I know, he wasn't motivated by money. I don't think he was particularly motivated by some idealistic view of, way of just idea that he could make the world a better place. He just wanted to do it because he was annoyed at his employer. At least that's the story how it goes. All I'm going on is just a Wikipedia article. Maybe there's something else going on. So if you say, that I'm being naive in explaining why he did what he did. I'm not prepared to go into the story in such detail. And then at the same time, he was accused of downloading inappropriate pictures. As I said, I don't want to go into details. You can look it up. And that is, in fact, what he was recently convicted of, I believe. So he was convicted of this. Yes, there were two things that he was convicted of. There was the espionage and his downloads. and he has just been sentenced to 40 years in prison. So I thought I would quickly look at his chart. Now, what I find interesting about this chart, his chart is the opposite of Prince George. So if you've been listening to my videos recently, I had concerns about Prince George because Prince George, as in Prince William's son, because Prince George has all his planets in, certainly all his traditional planets, Sun through to Saturn, in negative signs being earth or water. In the case of Joshua Schulte, it's the opposite. All his personal planets, Sun through to Saturn, are in positive signs. In other words, fire or air. No, okay, I need to qualify that. If I take his noon chart, this is the case. At noon, his moon is at 135 Aries. Now, if he was born before 9 o'clock in the morning, his moon would be in Pisces, and so what I said would not be true. But it's possible that all his traditional planets are in positive signs, i.e., fire and air, and that can present a problem also. Clearly, he is a difficult person with behavioral issues. Look, he's a Libra. This is a reminder that Librans are not always nice, accommodating people. But positive, I suppose, leaking all that stuff to downloading material, leaking all that stuff to WikiLeaks. I'm not here to judge whether or not that was a good thing for society to leak the information to WikiLeaks. I'm just pointing it as a statement of fact. That is a very positive thing to do. Upset by what's going on at work, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, at noon, his moon is in Aries. Also, even if his moon is in Pisces, notice this is someone who's got Sun opposition Mars. Yes, he might have Sun in Libra, but it's perhaps more important the fact that he's got Sun in Libra opposition Mars in Aries. So that is someone who is into sort of fights, and I think he did have. Even in the CIA, he was having. I think it might have ended up him having fist fights with his workmates. So he was a very difficult employee, and that is perhaps shown by the fact that he's got Sun opposition Mars. He was also born at the time of this Saturn-Uranus conjunction. So it was a kind of a generation, perhaps, that were quite hasty, quite impulsive. This is a generation that likes travel, that likes the internet, is very, perhaps in some ways, quite forward-thinking, but quite tense. And so he seems to have sort of really picked it all up. Now, this Sun-Mars opposition is square Neptune. And so Neptune he's got Mars square Neptune, he's got Sun square Neptune, probably got probably Mars sesquiquadrate the Sun Neptune midpoint. So I think it's the Neptune that makes things out of control. Sun opposition Mars is just very, very obvious. It's just okay. You might be aggressive, you might get into fights, but it's not necessarily particularly complicated. Neptune perhaps creates some complications there. There's some confusion there. There's maybe a certain amount of pathology that in terms of that, and the sort of behavior like downloading photographs and keeping them on his computer. and filing these photographs. That's Mars Neptune. It can be Mars Neptune. It isn't always going to be Mars Neptune, but Mars Neptune in extreme cases. I suppose Mars is the planet of male sexuality, and it's square Neptune. It can be diverted into places, into areas that are not always particularly healthy. So I think we can see some problems in this chart. Now, if you're into Chiron, you'll notice that Chiron, if you throw Chiron in, you have a grand cross. Chiron is that wound, whatever it is, and I suppose that's how he's trying to resolve it. Chiron opposition Neptune, and it doesn't seem that he's certainly not doing any healing, but Chiron represents a wound, and he deals with this wound in a way that, obviously a psychological wound, in a way that does appear to be somewhat pathological. One final point about this chart. I said I didn't want to go into great detail about this chart. I wanted to move on to look at the Biden brothers. One final point about this chart is that he has Cupido square the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So let me just show you what that means. I'll just put up all the hypotheticals. There is a planet Cupido. So the sign for Cupido is like a mixture of Jupiter and Venus. So the Mars Saturn, there's Mars. There is the Mars Saturn midpoint is about here and around 16 Aquarius. So Cupido is square his Mars Saturn midpoint. So Cupido is the principle of wanting sort of unions. It's about relationships, but it's at quite a sort of high level, and it's a bit weird. It's like Cupido is like some force that is a bit out of control, and so Cupido square the Mars Saturn midpoint might represent some very weird ideas about unions, about how he's going to relate to people, something very strange. And Cupido, these hypotheticals are often like forces that are just out of control. Even though it's got a nice name and a nice glyph with Jupiter and Venus connected, it can be difficult. Now, perhaps that's a reminder how Alfred Witte, who first developed Cupido, he discovered it. He was observing. I think he discovered it by he was observing. He was on the Eastern Front during the First World War, and he was observing Russian artillery barrages. Some things don't change, do they? He was observing artillery barrages, and he was trying to time the artillery barrages with reference to the planets, and he couldn't find irregular planets. He couldn't find a link, so he came up with new planets, and I think the first new planet he came up with was Cupido. Anyway, I think Cupido square the Mars Saturn midpoint could be quite difficult. I mean, I might as well just tell you what Alfred Witte actually said about Cupido on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Take it or leave it. So Cupido on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, he says, Cupido, quarrel in a community, interruption or an end of activities, separation in marriage, divorce, death in the family, death in the company of others. Quarrel in a community. That is exactly what happened. I mean, in terms of his work, his community is his workmates at the CIA. I think the Cupido square the Mars-Saturn describes that really well, actually. So, Cupido is not just about love, it's about the community, the union, the cohesion of the community. It's on the Mars-Saturn, the quarrelling. And so that's how it perhaps worked. Although I think the Cupido on the Mars-Saturn midpoint is also saying something about his sexuality. Although one can probably read that also from Mars square Neptune. Okay, so I just now want to look very quickly at Hunter Biden and Beau Biden. I'm not going to spend long on it, but I just noticed that it was that that Saturday. If you look at Beau Biden, I don't have a time of birth for Beau Biden, but I do have a time of birth for Hunter Biden. So here's Beau Biden's chart. He was born February the 3rd, 1969. And so he was in the same sort of accident. So their mother, Nelia Biden, was in the car with the two brothers and their sister. And on December the 18th, 1972, there was this accident in which a sister was killed and the two brothers were badly hurt. Now, Beau Biden has a Venus-Uranus opposition in his chart. Now, you could take Venus as a universal significator of women. And indeed, it could be the mother. Remember, I don't have a time of birth for him. And so Venus opposition Uranus, you could say this is a woman having an accident. That is his mother having an accident. So that is a potential manifestation of it. Just to remind us that Hunter Biden, if you look at Hunter Biden's chart, just to compare the two, we do have a time of birth for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has a Mars-Uranus opposition. So with Hunter Biden's Mars-Uranus opposition, in a way that perhaps that accident was more personal to him, that Mars-Uranus opposition, that was his accident. But maybe with Beau Biden, Venus opposition Uranus, that was his mother's accident. So there perhaps maybe just a different perception about the way the two men saw the accident. Now, the difference between Hunter Biden and Beau Biden is, of course, Beau Biden was the one who was kind of more sensible. I mean, as far as I know, there weren't any sort of drug issues, I don't think. He was, he joined the armed forces as a JAG, what they call it, JAG. I mean, as a lawyer, military lawyer. Then he became a lawyer. I think he was district attorney for Delaware, and he was, I think, preparing for a run when he died, or just before he died, he was preparing to run for governor of Delaware. So he was well and truly getting up there on the political ladder. If he hadn't have died, probably the sky's the limit. So he kind of was perhaps the sensible brother. And Mars, his brother, Hunter Biden, has the Mars opposition Uranus. Hunter Biden has the Sun conjunct Venus. But I think the Mars-Uranus, possibly the Mars-Uranus opposition in Hunter Biden's chart was causing the issues. Now, in Beau Biden's chart, we notice that he doesn't actually have any Earth in his chart, except Pluto in Virgo. Now Hunter Biden has certainly got Earth in his chart. Got Moon in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, Saturn in Taurus, but with Beau Biden, we don't have any Earth. So how is that working? Now, it may be that when you've got someone with no Earth, we've got a certain sense of compensation. They don't feel particularly grounded, and I suppose losing his mother and the sort of the family chaos obviously must have happened. Perhaps he feels a need to be to ground things. And I suppose with astrology, you've also got there are other things going on. He's the older brother. I suppose that perhaps gives him a certain amount of responsibility, which perhaps Hunter Biden didn't have. And with Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden had that very his Mars Uranus opposition was really very close. Now, looking at Beau Biden's Aries point, I think the Aries point actually is quite important for Beau Biden. Now, if you think about it, so the accident happened. The accident happened on December the 18th, 1972. So this happened just before his 4th birthday, if I've got that right. So he would have been 3 on February the 3rd, 1972. So just before his 4th birthday. So we kind of need to look for, in terms of solar arc directions, we need to look for an angle in his chart which is just under 4 degrees. And I think we can see it here. Notice how the Aries point, there's the Aries point at 0 degrees Aries, and we can actually progress the Aries point 1 degree for every year. So if we progress the Aries point to the date of a mother's accident, it will actually be pretty close to Uranus, because Uranus is at 3 degrees 41, so that is going to be, that's 2/3, so that's going to be 8 months. So that's going to be 3 years and 8 months. So 4 months short of his birthday would have been January, December. Okay, it would have been, theoretically, the Aries point would have hit his Uranus in October. I think off the top of my head, October 1972. The accident was in December 1972. So that's pretty good. So this Aries point, 0 degrees Aries, is just 4 degrees short of Uranus. So it moves by solar arc direction 1 degree for a year. It clips forward. And so we can see this accident happening at hitting his Uranus there. Now, you could argue that everyone born around 1960, in early 1969, would have had Uranus at around 3-4 degrees Libra. Did they all have accidents? No. Why did he have an accident? Okay, well, I think it's strengthened by the fact that he has Mercury trine Uranus. So Mercury is trine his Uranus. So I think that gives that Uranus extra power. But also, he's the son of a senator. He wasn't. Joe Biden wasn't a senator when Beau Biden was born, but he was the son of a senior politician, or at least of someone who was going to become a senior politician. And I think when you get involved with senior politicians, these kind of things are more likely to happen. What happened? What happened to Nelia Biden, her accident? In some small way, it would have impacted what would happen in America. It's like fate is a very complicated computer. And so for him, a son of a politician, he's more likely to be affected by this Aries point moving to Uranus than for someone else. Plus, it does fit. Maybe you just shouldn't be driven by your mother at a particular time, in a particular way. I don't know, but it certainly fits. Maybe we shouldn't think about it too much. And I think possibly the Mercury trine Uranus is fitting that. You can also point out that Uranus is making a semi-square to Mars. So Mars is 45 degrees from that Uranus. So that Mars semi-square Uranus is making that Uranus more dangerous than it would be just in isolation. Now, as far as Hunter Biden's death is concerned, so he died of a brain tumor, glioblastoma, which seems a ghastly disease. What is the brain? Well, I suppose in astrology, the brain, you could say, well, it's Aries, it's a head. One can argue about that. He has a lot of stuff in Aries. He's got Chiron, Chiron on the cardinal at 0 degrees Aries. Chiron on the Aries point, about wounds, about healing. I think you could say that he has perhaps, very much sort of demonstrated that. I mean, Chiron on the Aries point is about someone who is wounded. He obviously lost his mother in an accident. He himself was badly hurt in the accident. And then he himself eventually got this terrible disease, glioblastoma. What was happening when he died May the 30th, 2015. From a perspective of solar arc directions, so I did the solar arc direction for I think this is the right one. So this is the solar arc direction for when he died. So I'm sort of moving. I'm moving the sun. There's something not right there. It's the wrong way around. So that's Hunter Biden. We don't want. I didn't really want to look at. Okay, so there's Beau Biden's chart, and so I'll put Beau Biden in the middle. And we will put Beau Biden's solar arc direction right, there we are. Sorry about that. Okay. So there is Beau Biden's sun at 1442 Aquarius. And by solar arc direction, again, we don't know his time of birth precisely, but by solar arc direction, the sun solar arc directed to 113 Aries. So it directed to his north node and it directed to his Venus. So he's got a north node Venus conjunction. And so at the time of his death, sun was on his north node Venus conjunction. Also, we have Uranus, and Uranus was directed to his Mars. Now, the Uranus directing to his Mars, that kind of makes sense in a way. It's not really in his 8th house because we don't know where his time of birth is. So he died. And indeed, he was dying as Uranus was moving to his Mars. But also, this sun on his north node conjunct Venus. I'm tempted to say with this that when you've got this kind of configuration going on, because North Node is where we should be going, and he's got this Chiron North Node Venus conjunction. So if we take the view that there is an afterlife, that there is karma, that we leave this earth when we're ready to leave this earth. There's a suggestion here that for him, we focus on the tragedy of his grieving father and his family and whatever, but for him, with the sun conjunct the North Node, this was kind of a time for him to go. And I don't mean that in a callous sense. I suppose he was, in the process of running to be governor of Delaware. He was completely focused on this really easy, probably what would have been a very easy political career. But instead, he developed this cancer, and no, that wasn't for him. So his destiny was kind of somewhere else. He'd done his bit, whatever he had to do in this life, and now he was moving on to something that was more appropriate for him. I mean, I don't normally do this kind of stuff with astrology because it's kind of it's unprovable. But talking about future incarnations and whatever, it seems to be just words. It seems to be a bit of a waste of time. But in this case, I think possibly yes. I think that this was his time to go, perhaps on a personal level, and perhaps also in terms of what was going on in the society he was living in. He'd done his bit, and he's gone somewhere else. And perhaps you should take, in terms of his family, one should perhaps take some comfort from that. It was maybe a life that was well lived, even though he died when he was very young. How old would he be? He was 50. He died in 2015, so he's in his 40s. God, he died, I think he was 46. Yeah, 46 is very young, but maybe for him it was the right time for him to go. But I must make it clear that I don't have a time of birth for him. And when you're talking about death, you really do need a time of birth. And so that's it. I mean, I didn't really talk about Hunter Biden. I mean, I've talked about Hunter Biden before. I suppose I should point out that this was the day he was born. Sorry, the day he died, May the 30th, 2015. I don't know, in Bethesda, Maryland. Saturn was at 104 Sagittarius. The Sun was at 8 Gemini. There was a Sun-Mercury conjunction at 8 Gemini. And so if we go to the chart of his father, so Saturn was pretty much was very close to Joe Biden's ascendant when his son died, and certainly on the Sun-Venus midpoint, on the ascendant Venus midpoint. So that sort of fits. I mean, some people are questioning whether that's really the right time for Joe Biden, but the fact that Saturn was so close to the ascendant maybe does indicate that. And also there was a Sun-Mercury conjunction on Joe Biden's Saturn when his son died. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say about, so I talked about Joshua Schulte and the Biden brothers. I'm sorry I was a bit vague and I didn't go into great detail. But, we are dealing with a couple of untimed charts with Joshua Schulte and Beau Biden. We didn't have a time of birth, so it's really difficult to go into great detail about them. But anyway, I hope you found that video of some use. If you did enjoy the video or found the video useful, I'd be grateful if you were to like it. And if you're not subscribed and you want to see my videos in future and you think they're useful, then I would be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.